All right, Fuzz Club. Today we're finally talking about the mighty ORB. by request by Randy and begging us to do this one for a while, we finally managed to get an episode around ORB. We're talking about their album Naturality from 2017. They're an Australian band, kind of a psychedelic something or other, and we'll kind of get into what that means a little bit as we go. So before we get rolling too much, let's do some quick introductions. Casey, do you want to lead us off?
Hey, yeah, I'm Casey, and I'm with band Novodol. We are a pretty new band, so stoked to be joining a book club. Fuzz Club.
Aawks.
I'm Randy.
Kris.
We're Aawks, and he's part of Novodol.
Eddy.
Eddy play guitar in the Endless, bass in Low Talk, and I'll be doing bass on the next album for Aawks.
Ben.
I'm Benriz. I'm with Lost Dutchman and Southern Gate.
And finally, Pat.
And I'm Pat with Monster Riff.
All righty. So, ORB. I didn't know who this band was. I'd never heard of them until you mentioned them, Randy. I don't know about anybody else. Was anyone aware of this band beforehand?
I've heard of them. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. They have a number of albums out, right? I don't know how they escaped, but they're a little bit more on the psychedelic side, I guess, than some of the stuff that we cover. There was moments in this album that had like a little bit of like progressive doom, psychedelic, garagey, something or other. I know we kind of mentioned in the chat a little bit. I thought there was a lot of like Ty Segall, who we talked about a couple episodes ago, and Fuzz and stuff. But someone mentioned King Gizzard, which is a good reference point as well. And there's even kind of parts of like, I don't know, like the Beatles or something in there a little bit that like kind of went heavy or something. So anyway, Randy, why don't you start us off and tell us what caught your attention about this band and everything that you heard, and maybe this album specifically even.
Yeah, so for me, I think it was 2019, we went to see King Gizzard play. They opened for them, and it was a mind-blowing experience because you had an expectation to go see King Gizzard, but we had no expectation of what was about to come at us. And when I got to join the Fuzz Club, that was the first thing I always thought about ORB, was just this wall of fuzz tone that just comes at you. And then add in the super talented players, and like their parts are intertwining and not always matching, but somehow melding into this beautiful like symphony of sound that's happening. And I became instantly obsessed with them. And I had to buy like every vinyl immediately from Flightless Records. And I was like so excited that whenever I think Fuzz and Fuzz Club, I was like, it's time to talk about ORB, and I needed my turn.
Awesome.
So
Yeah, we've gone to see King Gizzard and
Hold on one second. Is that Pablo?
somebody's getting a phone call, Teams call.
All right, he's muted. Go ahead. We'll give him an introduction here in just a minute when his phone stops ringing.
so we had gone to see King Gizzard and had no idea who ORB was, as Randy mentioned. And when they came out, we were like really intrigued because the sounds were just everything that we dug about music. And then by the end of their set, we were like bona fide fans. And then I fully admit that by the end of the King Gizzard set, I was actually more of an ORB fan than a King Gizzard fan. So we bought all their albums, and yeah, we've been huge fans ever since.
And I like to think of it if like early Pink Floyd, the Beatles, maybe a hint of Sabbath, maybe a hint of King Gizzard, all made a baby in Woodstock. That's the sounds that would just come out and meld and like become and make those. Yeah, I can't say
that.
I think I throw in Blue Oyster Cult and Golden Earring and a bunch of like FM radio, 70s FM radio rock kind of sounds sprinkled in.
Right on. Yeah. Let's see if Pablo's available here.
Yeah.
Hi,
Hey.
guys. I'm so sorry about that.
Right.
I always remember that my first intervention in the Fuzz Club was interrupting with a phone call. I'm really sorry.
Thanks for joining us, man. It's good to have you on here.
Yeah. It's a pleasure and an honor to be here as well. And I hope everybody's having a good afternoon.
So before we get too far down here, I thought that maybe I would share the music video for one of their songs off of this album called "Man in the Sand." I don't know if this was like their only single off the album or not, but it's an interesting music video. So let's give everyone a little taste of what this band sounds like before we get into it too much. Huh?
Just another man with a watch on his hand and a cousin in the war. Every average Joe with a button and a bow doesn't know what for. Could it be that I don't get the reason? Could it be that there is no point? Every average Jack with a bag on his back and an uncle in Iraq. Every average Jess, life is in a mess 'cause her uncle won't come back. Could it be that I don't get the reason? Or could it be that there is not a point? Standing at the door, wondering what for, why we're in the war for. Blinking at the sun, it's got me wondering how come we overstayed our welcome. Could it be that I don't get the reason? Could it be that there is not a point?
Wow.
So psychedelics don't hurt to join with ORB.
I love the music video. I could have done like another music video for the rest of the album. I think they're awesome.
Oh
That
my
was
god.
cool.
was a lot
Big
of fun.
time Beatles vibes with that song.
Right?
It's funny because I always think of their music as being very collage-like, where it's like a section goes to the next section, and it's like there's a cut almost. And the video is very much like the sound, you know.
Yeah, 100%. Like it represents the music really well, and I feel like that song kind of represents the music really well too. Like there's other songs on the album that are a little bit heavier or weirder or whatever, but that song kind of represents everything that I think that they kind of do.
Yeah, I really enjoy a lot of the different ambience and tones that they'll bring here and there, and they kind of. I actually at work today, since it was Fuzz Club day and it was finally my ORB day. I told a fellow to listen to Orb, and I listened to it at the same time, and we were teasing each other while we're working. And he was like, "Whoa!" And by the end of this album, he's like, "Yeah, you just made a new fan there." And I was like,
Yeah.
Yeah,
So how? Go ahead, Eddie. Sorry.
I was gonna say, like, some of the guitar tones is like the fuzz that they use is just like you wouldn't expect it. It's just like kind of obnoxious at times. It's like, but that's why it's so cool. You know, like even the bass tone like feels like it's like straight out of the 70s. It's awesome.
Yeah, that was the thing that impressed me the most about this album. Like, I've never heard of the band before today, and I was really impressed with how faithfully they recreated the sort of like the recording techniques of the 70s. Like, I could not believe that this album was recorded in 2017. Everything, just like the texture of the drums, texture of the bass, and you can really like hear the like the grazing of the finger against the bass strings. Everything was so faithfully recreated, and the fuzz tone reminded me of this song. I can't remember the name of the song. Something about Spirit in the Sky. Do you remember that? The
Oh yeah, Spirit in the Sky. Who was that? Can't remember. Covered by a bunch of people.
Yeah, but the original one, like the story is that they actually just like hammered the cone of the speaker to break it apart so that it would like treble more. And I can't remember.
Norman Greenbaum.
There you go. That's the one. Yeah. It remind me a lot of that.
Yeah. I think I really like the minimalist sound. Like, it's really not overproduced. I got like early Sabbath vibes from the first few songs. And I like that kind of raw sound or 70s sound for sure.
Yeah, even the tone of the vocalist is very similar to like Ozzy in the first Sabbath album, no? Like very like whiny, like it's probably not the correct adjective. But
it is. I didn't really think about that. When I first heard the vocals, I immediately thought of Fuzz, and I had to look it up, and it was not the same singer. But yeah, I can hear the shrill vocals like Sabbath for sure.
Well,
yeah, exactly.
while we saw them live, I definitely had some psychedelics at the time in my system.
Oh
and
my goodness.
I know, and I was pretty certain at some point. I'm like, Chris, that's Ty Segall with a wig on, right? Like, right? And I just kept saying it, like, come on, like anytime he's gonna take that wig off, and we're like, what? Never happened.
Yeah, really, I agree with you, Pablo. It sounds like it was recorded on tape. Everything sounds analog. I don't know if it was, but it.
Yeah, I was gonna say I don't know anything about like the recording of this or anything. Some of you guys that know a little bit more about the recording process and effects and all that kind of stuff maybe have some sort of idea, but I didn't get anything from them as far as like, you know, how it was recorded or effects used or anything like that. But even in the song that we just listened to, I thought that they kind of like go back and forth between a couple of different like guitar sounds or something. And they have a really cool way of making simple music seem complex or complex music seem simple. And I'm not sure which one it is, but
I think you're right.
Absolutely.
Well, for example, my favorite track was Immortal Tortoise, which sounds like a prog rock song. It doesn't even sound like just like hard rock. It sounds like it reminded me of listening to Camel with my dad, like when I was growing up. Like it very faithfully recreates that sort of like, and I think somebody touched upon this on how the song just like starts morphing into something completely different, but it does it very seamlessly. It doesn't sound like, you know, like Yes or Genesis that really anticipate the change, the chord progression changes. This is like it flows very smoothly.
Yeah,
a tapestry or like a collage.
Yeah, it definitely transcends a few genres, I'd say.
Really felt like Revolver era Beatles to me. But I mean that in like a really good way, like a lot of the experimental stuff that they were doing, you know, they're in late 60s, early 70s, you know, before they split. I mean, a lot of it just like layering with this. Also a little bit of like Syd Barrett era, Pink Floyd. I'm hearing there a little bit too. I loved it though.
Someone in the comments, I think of like maybe their Bandcamp or something, had mentioned Syd Barrett and in the lyrics and stuff. And I didn't catch a lot of the lyrics. Maybe I didn't listen to it enough to really like start going into the lyrics and stuff. But had mentioned like lyrically how it was kind of a throwback to some of that Syd Barrett era type stuff and stuff like that.
It's funny you say that because my my dad sings the Gnome, like I think that's off Vipers of the Gates of Dawn, to my son now, and it's like a really like plotting. I want to tell you a story about. And anyway, the song we listened to earlier reminds me of that because it's like a very plotting, just dun, dun,
Yeah.
dun, dun, and then it explodes, and then it's dun, dun, dun. So it's like a very like whimsical, and a lot of this music is like very lighthearted, and then like in Immortal Tortoise, it'll just get like really, really, really heavy.
But it sounds very whimsical. That was a good word for a lot of it. But like lyrically, it sounded like he had mentioned some stuff about like going to war and stuff like that. So it's like this maybe whimsical vibe on some dark topics or something.
Yeah.
Man in the Sand is definitely a protest song.
Really?
Yeah, that makes
I
sense.
mean, lyrically, you hear it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think
They
Syd
don't-
Barrett has a song called Terrapin too, right? On his solo stuff, which isn't that something related to a turtle?
I think so.
Was that?
That's intentional.
Yeah, speaking of Pink Floyd, the last track of Rainbow's End, the clean guitar part on there, that reminds me of what is that? Brain Damage. I think that's off of
Oh,
Dark
cool.
Side of the Moon.
Oh yeah.
Then it gets really like it goes from that, then it goes right into like psychedelic fuzz, like out of nowhere, and
That's the Lunatic is on the Grass song, right?
that's right. Yeah,
Yeah, it's great.
that's a
great,
good tune.
great song.
Yeah.
I know maybe a lot of, the guys are so, thank goodness there's another girl here. There's something to be said for me personally. I think my love of ORB also came to the idea that you're giving me all of this amazing guitar riff, fuzz sound. The drumming is impeccable, especially because I did get to see it live. But there's still a danceability, and maybe that's that whimsical word. There was the ability to enjoy yourself and groove and get into it. I appreciate music that you can't, but I really like music that you can.
Yeah, that's definitely more up your alley.
Oh yeah, I'm not going to tell you, like ORB and Rickshaw Billy are my two like after enough ciders kind of music.
Yeah, and obviously I listen to a lot of like stoner and doom and sludge and stuff, but punk is what I've been listening to for my entire life, and that's what I usually play in my other band. So like punk and garage and that sort of thing. So I think that's why I enjoyed this album so much, because it did have a lot of garage tones. I'd like that really raw, simplistic recording. I think that's what drew me, and the fuzz. I mean, fuzz on any guitar just kicks it up a notch.
So Randy, how do you think that this one compares to some of their other albums? Obviously you picked this one for a reason. Maybe it was a good introduction for everyone that hadn't heard them before, or maybe it was their best or most cohesive or anything. But what do you think about that compared to the other couple albums?
For me, they're all equally fantastic. However, I felt like this one had because Rocky's Pride and Joy we had done last week, and some of the other ones, it's like a driving like force, whereas this was a little journey where you were waving, you were kind of floating through that kind of ether of sound. And so I thought it would be a nice, like, not opposite, but another kind of piece, because some of the other ones were a little like the other albums. They're all great and they all have their flows and stuff, but this one was even visually different than some of the other ones, but yet still there's something to be said for even the artwork and that I find interesting, because I feel like they're trying to say something in the their artwork, which maybe I'll bring up. So I wanted everybody to have to float along with me.
So this is the artwork, and shoot, hold on. Let me get rid of that.
Yeah, it's very whimsical.
Yeah, I would agree with Randy too. Just to add on that, all three of their full-length albums are very consistent, and you could put all of them back to back and mix them all together, and it would sound like almost like they recorded it in the same session to me. There's a lot of difference. So I don't know if they recorded in the same studio or with the same instruments, or if they were. I'm not sure how they did that, but very consistent.
I couldn't find who did this artwork. It wasn't on their Bandcamp or anything like that, so I'm not quite sure. But to me, it right off the bat, it reminded me of like my mom's plates.
Yeah, yeah.
I was just thinking it looked like a Calamity Wear plate.
Yeah, that's it.
Corningware.
It's
That's
the old
right, yeah.
school Corningware.
Yeah.
I don't. To me, there was something interesting about like their framing a void. You know,
Mhm.
what's in the void, right? And there was something in that kind of piece that really drew attention to it, because a lot of us artists, we seem to fill the space all the time, right? We
Yeah.
want to like draw your eye here and there and whatever. And then there was something about in that void, like literally their name is just the tiniest little piece at the bottom, and that
And I
kind
don't
of
believe they have the album name on here at all, unless I'm just not seeing it and it's hidden
Yeah.
somewhere. But I don't see it.
Well,
so.
the nature itself is the naturality.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. Yeah, I mean that could be for sure.
All of we have all the vinyls, and there's not a lot of information on any of the vinyls. It's very
Okay.
limited.
Wow, leaves a lot to the imagination.
hmm
So it's been very enjoyable years of ORB listening for me.
Yeah, I need to do some deeper dives for sure. I know I've heard them before, but nothing was stand out, so I can't remember when I
You
heard
can
them.
come
but
borrow all our
Probably
vinyls.
at your house.
You've definitely heard them at our house when you've been over.
Yeah, I think that's it.
And do they tour North America often? Like, when was the last time they were around here?
Once, as far as I know, they came here to support King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard in
I think
2019.
that was 19.
Other than that, I don't believe so. I don't know. I
COVID
know
took
that-
a hit on a lot of
I think
things. Though, so
John Dwyer from the OCs and all those bands is a fan and has something to do with the band somehow. I don't know exactly what, but if you go onto his label site, they're on there, like I think they're distributed through his site or through his label or something.
And I think at least at one point this band was on the King Gizzard label as well. Is that correct?
they're definitely on Flightless Bird. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, they're definitely a part of that. And I did try to reach out myself too, because I was like, "Ooh, please, I would love to like get some more information off of them," but they seem almost so secretive. And then I even reached out to Rocky's Pride and Joy, and I was like, "Hey, have you guys ever worked with the ORB guys?" And just shortly before our recording here, they had mentioned that Jessie did work with them with her record label a little bit way back in the early days. And I was like, oh, I wish I could have had more time to like get more information on that. But I thought that was really cool, because I was like, we just did an episode on you guys and we're doing one on them. And it was, you know, sorry to say, I'm going to say it over and over again. It was my choice.
Are they still active to your knowledge? Are they still making music or a band or?
They're definitely still a band. On their Instagram, I had saw that they'd started a bit of a residency at a local bar, and they were doing like every Thursday night there. And so I thought that was pretty interesting, because I think the bar is in Melbourne, but they're from Geelong.
Oh, Geelong, that's right.
Geelong, yeah.
Yeah, so they said that they were coming out of their 2-year hibernation, and they said they were going to be in a Melbourne bar every Thursday. Back in July, so that was the last post. They don't post a lot, they don't seem to have a lot, but
yeah,
the stuff they put out, I definitely full on am a fan of. And most of the sites you go on, like everything's just sold out, so it's not an easy thing to access non-digitally.
Yeah.
That sounds so cool. I love bands like that don't post and are just mysterious. That doesn't happen very often nowadays.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen very often. The few bands that like keep that mystery around them and stuff, you got to appreciate it a little bit, because it's got to be tough to like even get on a label these days without like a social media presence and kind of to sell records or sell tickets or whatever. Like, you know, you got to respect them holding out and remaining mysterious a little bit.
Getting on new songs, especially good ones, it's murder, because you want to share it with everybody, you know. But like you said, being a little dark and mysterious, you know, you kind of want to just throw enough breadcrumbs out there that maybe somebody will follow it, hopefully, and not wind up in a witch's oven, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Unless that's a song title, that'd be a good one, though.
Any favorite moments on this record, and then we'll get into maybe something that you didn't like about this album. But what are the high points of this record for you, everybody?
My two favorite songs are "You Are Right" and "ORB." Those two just hit me right in the good stuff, and I just want more and more and more.
I had written those both down, and ORB, the ORB song. is kind of like the more doomier sounding one, and they go into some more psychedelic stuff throughout the song, but they kind of return to that doom sound a little bit in there. Whereas the "You Are Right" one, I had mentioned on my notes here that was a lot of King Gizzard sounding to me. That one,
Yeah.
so, pretty different stuff, but yeah, I made note of both of those. And then Rainbow's End, was more Beatles sounding and stuff like that. I just thought it was interesting how wide their net is cast on this album, while still definitely sounding like themselves throughout. I mean, it sounds like Orb. It's not random, but they cast a wide net,
Yeah.
Anybody else? Favorite moments? Favorite
Or-
songs?
Orban and Man in the Sand were definitely like the shining spots for me. I liked the entire album start to finish. I mean, I had it on like probably 10 minutes before we met still.
Mhm.
I can't really say that often that like I come across a flawless album, but I like the whole thing. Hard to really put your finger on the pulse of what's a shining star on there because they're all shining.
Awesome.
Yeah, they're pretty good. I can't remember the names of the second and third song. I was driving at the time, so I couldn't really pay attention. But
Man in the Sand and You Are Right are second and third.
what were they?
Man in the Sand and You Are Right are the second and third songs.
Okay, yeah. I remember like bopping around to those, and I think like Randy too. Like sometimes I like songs I can like move around and dance to, and like entertain the people driving beside me.
Yep.
Yeah.
Was it ever like too progressive or too psychedelic or too out there for anybody? Was there any missteps in this album?
I like a little more structure in my music, but they were doing their thing, and I didn't have any problems with it. I think like I was struck, like Kris said, like this feels like a collage. And once I realized it was a collage, I was like, all right, I'll go for the ride, and then it's fine. I like a little bit more structure.
Like for me, my attention deficit brain, it really feeds into that. So I like the constant changes and all of the, throwing the riffs into a mix. And I really appreciate their use of space and how it's heavy, but there's lots of air, there's lots of headroom, and it's not so dense.
Was not riff salad.
Openness to it, yeah. So I appreciate that.
Like all of the albums from the 70s. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. But still full and warm.
Yeah, I for me the proggier they got, the better. That's why Immortal Tortoise was the track when I was like, oh wow, like that really hit the spot for me. And I really love what Randy was saying about the flow that the drums keep. For me, it felt like especially the drum feels for some of these proggy parts. They were so flat. They weren't groovy. They were more like flowy. It felt like water being moved around in a bucket. Like just like.
It's a great analogy.
I loved it.
We kind of talked about what they sound like, and we mentioned Ty Segall and King Gizzard and the Beatles and Pink Floyd and stuff like that. But for our audience of people that maybe have not heard this band, which I'm guessing is a few of them, what do you think that they might be fans of if they were to get into this music? And like what I mean by that is like what do you think that they already like and you can recommend that they would like this band if they're a fan of something else?
Yeah, they're for fans of.
Yeah.
Well, I think definitely the bands we mentioned, King Gizzard, Ty Segall,
Mhm.
and then all those older 70s bands. Like it's funny, Pablo mentioned Camel. I haven't heard that name in a long time. I love those guys. All that old 70s kind of prog, like some moments of even King Crimson, even in the early Crimson stuff. Gong, a little bit of Gong in there, maybe.
I feel like even just on the groove kind of side of things, like even OCs type stuff.
Yeah, definitely.
Where there's like this like trippy flow of sounds and like what I mean? Sometimes it's angry in your face of a punch, and then this is a little more like, it's like, and I don't know if that just explained, but I hope you got it.
Well, I always hear Golden Earring. I don't know why. Like there's moments where it's so Golden Earring to me. I hear Radar Love like happening all the time.
I'm pretty sure that's the only song that I know by Golden Earring. I don't know that I know much else.
Oh, Twilight Zone. Twilight Zone.
I was hoping you weren't going there. But I definitely get what you're referencing. Yes.
Yeah. It's the sounds though. It's more than the riffs, it's the sound of those. And like Pablo was saying, it's the 70s, right?
Yeah.
The sound of that FM radio from the 70s.
I was even hearing some like similarities between this and Sorceress, like that Beneath the Mountain album.
Oh,
I still love that album.
It's nothing
oh,
like gloomier, but this like it's still like got that eclectic vibe to it, you know, like
Interesting. That's an interesting one to bring up. I wouldn't have thought that. I'll have to go
and that
back
was
and
a
look.
wonderful piece to find too. Yeah,
Yeah.
that
that was out of nowhere.
Mhm.
Yeah, I feel like I need to re-listen to this album now.
not only do I implore that you re-listen to this album and really try to let it kind of, whether it's like your, you know what I mean, like coffee shopping, just like let the fuzz play in the background while you're doing shit, or whether you want to sit down and immerse yourself and maybe chew on a little something. I'm just saying, it's an experience. And then you gotta listen to the other albums too, because they have this amazing field that comes around you. And we watched so many like YouTube videos where like just some live performances, and we couldn't get enough when we first got introduced, and it was something other. And I'm really happy that I finally get to share it and like get you all in on the orb train.
Yeah, the live orb thing is cool too, because I don't know if they did it when we saw them, but they do switch instruments up. So the bass player sometimes will be on guitar and the singer will sometimes be on bass, and like it's all flipping around. It's kind of cool.
I know we've mentioned it on this podcast before, probably many times, but they do seem like a great band to see live. And I wonder how much is lost in the recording of the music. How different is this recording from when you saw them live?
It's pretty true to the sound, actually. They
Okay.
sound, pretty close to that live.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Is this just a trio? Is this just 3 players? Musicians?
It was a 4-piece when we saw them, but they have been a trio on a lot of videos.
Yep.
They had an extra guitar player when we saw them.
Docky.
What about all of the like synthy, like background keyboard pads? Did they have those live or?
They did.
Did they have
So it's hard for me to remember because our experience was enhanced a little bit.
There was a keyboard player, but was that King Gizzard or
That's
was
the
that
thing.
ORB?
We in our distorted memories, we can't remember if it was King Gizzard who had like 15 people on stage, or if it was Orb that had this synth guy too. I don't remember.
But it was amazing, and it was they were kind of dark lit, I remember too, for most of the show, where there was just kind of some backlight, and so they were just kind of silhouettes.
Yeah, they're not super animated on stage,
Nope.
but they don't really need to be because the music is so entertaining. You know, they're
Yeah.
kind of standing still playing their instruments.
All right. Any final thoughts on this one?
I would like to hear from Aawks how much Orb has influenced your sound. You have a big fuzzy upbeat sound. They have a big fuzzy upbeat sound. Have they been influential in how you've kind of approached your music?
Oh, 1,000,000% they have, yeah. And it's funny because I can't, like I always joke that I'm not good enough to rip off someone and make it sound like that band. I just kind of, I try to rip off bands and then it just comes out sounding like me. So luckily enough to sound like Orb. But I definitely am hugely influenced by their riff making and the changing of the riff, where nothing sticks on a riff for too long, until it kind of goes into something else. I like that. I appreciate that.
Anything else? Randy, this is your chance.
I could keep talking, but I feel bad. There's like a slew of people here. I have to admit the drummer is impeccable and highly talented, and I was in awe when they were playing, and it just kind of blew me away where he could go off on like these kind of syncopated, off time, changing times, and then circle right back into the song after those breakouts. And I was like, someday I might be able to learn to do even like a third of that, and it'll be super cool. Thank you.
Yes, good choice. Good choice.
Honestly, as long as we've like voted on these albums and like Orb's been up in the running a few times and not quite made the cut, I'm honestly like everyone seems to really enjoy it. Like everyone, even in the chat and everything, was like, "Oh, this is great." What a like nice little find that we weren't aware of and stuff. So it took us a while, but we got there, and I think everyone enjoyed it. So shout out to Randy and shout out to Orb for making it.
Yeah, it's funny to me. One thing I'll say too is I'm surprised at how much they don't pop up in the Doom and Stoner and Psych circles. Like they're kind of off the beaten path somehow, and I don't know why. To me,
because they're not on social media.
Because they're mysterious bands. Yeah,
That's actually it right there. They don't push. I don't know, but they definitely they have a sound and they have a feel, and I think it needs to be shared a bit more. So I'm happy that we're going to get the word out a bit, and then you never know, maybe there'll be another North American tour.
Well, and to mention that they're from Australia, and we just talked to Rocky's Pride and Joy, also from Australia, and they even mentioned they feel very isolated over there and stuff. And if they wouldn't have went on tour with King Gizzard, I mean, you guys probably wouldn't have heard of them. So it's important,
Yeah, we I think all of us can agree that like those musical finds wherever it is are kind of that come upon you and they stick with you, and then you just kind of sling it over your back, and you just anytime you're around some people, you're like, check it out, you check it out. And I think it's great to even just have that kind of connection in a moment, like I did with the guy at work today. Shout out to Doug, and be like,
Hi, Doug.
Right? Hi, Doug. I just made like a fan. I was just like out of nowhere, like, check it out. And the moment he did, he was like, okay, I'm in. And so thanks, guys. This was fun. And you can all have your choices again.
All right. Well, we'll go around and plug what everyone's up to. So Casey, you want to lead us off and tell us what you and Novadol and everybody's up to?
Yeah, sure. Thanks. So we have a couple shows coming up at the end of November. We're playing Hamilton, Ontario, Friday, November 24th with Aawks, actually. And then we're playing Toronto the next night on November 25th. And I think that's it for the year.
What do we got for the year?
So I'm doing those 2 days with Casey, and then also check out the Novadol vinyl, which is available on Tarantula Tapes and Black Throne Records.
Thank you, Chris. Please buy my album, yes.
Let's sell it out, man. It's a great album, produced by our buddy Dan from Indian Handcrafts and about 400 other bands. And Aawks is got a show this coming Saturday, the Tarantula Tapes 3rd year anniversary party. It's gonna be a blast. And then
she is Tarantula Tapes.
Yeah, Casey is Tarantula Tapes. And then the 24th,
thank you for plugging everything for me, Chris.
The 24th, we're doing Vertigo in Hamilton with a live liquid light show with the plates and the oil in the water. It's gonna be a blast.
Cool.
And then December 9th, we are at the Junction Underground in Toronto with Sun Below and another band. I can't remember her name right now.
And when's the EP out?
EP November 17th, the first single drops from the EP, and then December 8th, the full EP is available. And then early January, February, we're going to be heading back to the studio to start the second album recording.
Cool. Eddy.
The only thing that's in the works right now, like to make a note of, is The Endless has a track release coming out within the next couple of weeks with the announcement of our album release show for early next year. So that'll be coming pretty soon.
Awesome.
Finally get some music out there.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's been a while.
Yeah, this will be our first music out there, so I'm excited to put it out.
Sweet.
Just want to jump in. You've been playing a ton of cool acoustic and like world instrument-y kind of stuff. I'm looking forward to hearing some of that at some point.
Yeah.
Thanks, man. I got stuff in the works for all that too. And after all these bands got their albums out, I'll be doing a solo album, mostly acoustic stuff.
Very cool.
Some more side projects on the go involved with that too.
What tuning was that you were using on your video, on your last acoustic video on Instagram?
It was like a dad guide tuning, but the guitar like this, like A sharp, so it was like really low.
Sounded gorgeous.
Thanks.
Benriz.
Well, first of all, I want to give props to Eddy, because like I heard all that you were uploading this week, man, and it's killer. I find myself revisiting it, so big ups.
Thank you.
as far as Dutchman goes, we do have a new EP scheduled to come out on April the 20th, on Stoner's Easter. And if you're going to be within the Arizona area, by the time this comes out, we will be playing in Tucson, Arizona on the 18th, doing a benefit for the Legion of Seven Churches. And that's all I got cooking.
Cool.
Awesome.
Monster Riff is somehow still alive. It feels like it's on life support right now, but still getting articles out every week and trying to get back into rhythm. Fatherhood has not always treated me kindly, so I'm trying to find that rhythm and the right balance. But stick around for some satire and some album reviews, and hopefully the podcast will be more regular again starting in December. So check it out if you want, and maybe I'll be there with new content.
Stephen Yoyoda interview you did was great, by the way. I just want to say that.
Yeah, that was all Ryan. That was a great interview.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, it was cool to get something out of him finally. I've been poking him for a while. I so's Pat, so to finally get something concrete put out, that's cool. He's the man. So
his artwork is great, and I know he's done an album cover for me. I don't know anybody else here, but
he's probably done
definitely
artwork for most people in the Fuzz Club, to be honest.
He did our logo,
Logo.
the t-shirt design.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pablo, what are you up to?
Well, I think I'm on the same boat as Pat. Parenthood is definitely beating me down right now with a 4-year-old and a 1-year-old, but we're still working on some stuff. We just finished the promotional push for our debut album, which did okay. And we are just gearing up for one last show. November 30th, we'll be playing in Austin, Texas at Elysium with Bridge Farmers. And then after that, immediately the next day, we're going to go back into the studio to start writing more songs for the next material for next year. And then in parallel, I'm still recording more song ideas with Eddy and Blake from iOS, and having a lot of fun with those too. This, by the way, is the first time that I meet Eddy virtually in person. I've been recording music with this guy for the past 4 months, and I've never seen his face before.
Yeah. Let's see.
I hear stories about you two quite often from the man himself, who happens to be my best friend. So yeah, I'm glad to see you and talk to you guys a little more often myself.
That's awesome.
All right, everybody. That'll do it. Go check out ORB, and we'll see you on the next one.
Nice to see everybody.
Bye.
Everybody.
Bye.